It is Monday, October the 24th, 2022. The good news, today's my anniversary. Happy anniversary to me and my wife. It's our 12th year of marriage, so you should all be celebrating that. Unfortunately, you're probably all too miserable, lamenting yet another Browns loss to be excited for me. So I won't waste any more time with my personal life. The Browns have lost again. That's 4 in a row. They are 2-5. And they are 10-15 since defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs in 2020. 10-15. That's a 40% winning percentage since winning that playoff game. Lot to get to today. We'll talk about the game specifically, the big picture of yet another loss. I'm going to save the Cavs. I know that Cavs with 2 games over the weekend, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow. I'll talk about the Cavs more. I'll talk about the Cavs in tomorrow's show. But today, it's all about the Browns and a miserable, miserable loss. That's all coming up next, right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the bullpen with Adam the Bull.
All right, so the Browns lose. The final score is 23-20. The Browns are at the moment the 15 seed in the AFC. You heard me correct. They're the 15 seed in the AFC. They, at the moment, would have a top 7 draft pick. I'm not sure the tiebreakers right now. They would be somewhere between 3 and 7. They don't have their draft pick, of course, because they traded for Deshaun Watson, which I get and I support, and I don't support him personally, but I get why they did it and makes sense that they did it. But that's how bad they have been. That's how bad they have played. And once again, the Browns lose to, as I mentioned, 23-20 the final. They have lost 4 straight since beating the Steelers to improve to 2-1. They'll play next 1 week from today against the Bengals on Halloween here in Cleveland. The Browns did little well. They played okay on defense. What's amazing, if you think about this game, is the Browns shut down the Ravens' 2 biggest stars. Lamar Jackson he was fine running the ball, 10 for 59, which is good. But it wasn't a massive factor in this game. He did have a couple of big plays to get first downs late, but for the most part, that alone didn't kill them. The running game in general was good for Baltimore. Gus Edwards was 16 of 66 with 2 touchdowns. Justice Hill 5 of 26. So they did run it well, 160 yards overall, but they ran it 44 times, so 3.6 yards per carry overall, not bad. Lamar Jackson only 9 of 16 for 120 yards and no touchdowns. And remarkably, not only did Mark Andrews not catch a pass, he wasn't even targeted in the passing game. No targets, no completions, no yards, no touchdowns. He had 1 running play for 4 yards. So you held Lamar Jackson to just over 50% completion and 120 yards in the air. He had a fine game, but not a special game running the ball. And their best player did nothing. And yet, the Browns lose 23-20. Once again, Jacoby Brissett, who, if you look at the statistics and you see 22 of 27 for 258 yards, you might say he played a good game. But as usual, in a big spot late, he made a huge error. He fumbled. And it's just not good enough. But most egregious is the fact that the Browns only ran the ball with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt 21 times total. 30 times, Jacoby Brissett either passed it or threw the ball. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why the Browns are not running the ball 55% of the time at least. They were never down by more than 10 points in this game. They were up early. Nick Chubb, we all know time and time again, the more he gets the ball, the better he does. He picked it up again after a bit of a slow start, just like he did in New England when they didn't feed him the rock. 16 carries, 91 yards. It's not good enough. You've got to give him the ball more. And I tell you, Kevin Stefanski is starting to lose me. I have been a big Kevin Stefanski supporter. I think the Browns constantly firing coaches is terrible. But it's getting hard to have a lot of faith in him when he keeps going away from his best player when the game is on the line. And I know this year that Nick Chubb has not been great in pass blocking, so how about we don't pass block in key situations? How about we run the freaking football? Because that's what the Browns do better than anybody else, and that's what they don't do enough of. Mari Cooper, fine game. Donovan Peoples-Jones caught all 6 of his targets for 71 yards. David Njoku caught all 7 of his targets for 71 yards, but then he got hurt, and he's in a walking boot. They were down an offensive lineman. It was noticeable today. Jedrick Wills not good enough. 3 penalties. John Johnson standing around on defense doing nothing as usual. A lot of blame to go around. And initially on the postgame show on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, I was getting on Cade York for the missed field goal at the end, even though it was very long, but it got blocked, so that's not really on him. But in all aspects of the game, the Browns failed once again. And in the end, 23-20 and yet another loss. The Browns, as I mentioned, will play the Bengals 1 week from today, Monday Night Football, and then it's a bye week after that. The question is, as we approach the trade deadline in a week, as we approach the bye in a week, will the Browns make any changes in terms of coaching and personnel? I think that's the big question. I'll get more into that a little bit later. But in terms of the game, it was just such a weird game because Mikey McNuggets brought this up in our postgame show. Again, if I would have said to you, Lamar Jackson didn't have a big game, Mark Andrews didn't catch a pass, you would have thought the Browns won. They didn't. Big turnover on the fumble. Not able to make plays when it came down to it in the final couple of minutes. Not able to make stops when it came down to it in big situations. And so the Browns come out on the bottom of this. The quarterback play has been probably as good as you could expect to some degree. Well, that's not even true because like in terms of completion percentage and in terms of yardage, it's not been that bad. But 7 touchdowns. So Jacoby Brissett, if you look at touchdown passes, touchdown runs by him, interceptions and fumbles by him, he has 7 touchdowns and 7 turnovers in 7 games. That's awful. That is awful. And the one thing we were supposed to trust about Jacoby Brissett is that he doesn't turn the ball over. Well, that's all he's done is turn the ball over. Jacoby Brissett has not been good enough. He's completed 60% of his passes. That sucks. 6.4-yard average. That sucks. 7 touchdowns. That's not great. 7 turnovers. That sucks. So I don't know what to tell you. I can't, he's not good enough. I would have played Joshua Dobbs. I understand. Well, but he completed so many of his passes today. He just makes nothing happen out there. He takes forever to throw the ball. He misses a lot of plays. He makes a lot of mistakes. He made some good plays today. I mean, I give him credit for that. That Amari Cooper play. And listen, I get on people when they complain about officiating, and the Browns didn't lose because of officiating. I didn't like the offensive pass interference on Cooper. I thought was a bad call. Now, he didn't have a great angle. They didn't really show up an angle from like the sideline, but it looked like a bad call. The false start on the kick appeared to be a bad call. You never know if he's going to make that field goal anyway or what's going to happen. But that appeared to be a bad call as well. I didn't see a false start. The pulling the flag on the hit, I thought that was the right call. He hit him on the shoulder. I thought that was the right call there. But the other two, yeah, the Browns got bad breaks. But this nonsense, the refs are cheating, they're doing this. I always say to people, if you think the refs are cheating, then don't bother watching the games. If the league is out to get the Browns, then don't bother watching the games. I'm not saying those weren't two bad calls. Yes, I thought the offensive pass interference and the false start were bad calls. They were missed calls. The offensive pass interference, again, maybe from a different angle, I wouldn't have thought that. The false start, I've watched that like 10 times now. I don't see it. Again, maybe I'm missing something. I didn't see it. But you can't leave it in the officials' hands. You still had a chance to make the kick. And you couldn't get it done. You couldn't get it done. And that's been the story of the Browns forever. It's certainly been the story of Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield and Jacoby Brissett. I mean, that's been the thing, right? Now, they got it done against the Steelers in the playoffs. But since then, I mean, you know, we talked about how Baker never came through or almost never came through in a big spot late. Well, the same thing, the trend has continued with Jacoby Brissett. Now, I don't think Jacoby Brissett's any good. I didn't think he was any good when we got here. And maybe it changes with Deshaun Watson. Maybe it all turns around. But how do I have a ton of faith in Kevin Stefanski? I see the Jets are 6-1 with Zach Wilson. They just lost their running back, Breece Hall. I see the 5-2. I see the Giants are 6-1 with Daniel Jones, who's thrown like 5 touchdowns this year. The Seattle Seahawks, they're 4-3 with Geno Smith. And I know what people said, oh, Geno, he's played great. He's played great. Yeah. Did you think he was great? Did you think he was any better than Jacoby Brissett coming into the season? I bet you didn't. Maybe he's being coached up there. Could that be something to do with it? Guy's been nothing his whole career. There's teams that are winning certainly more than the Browns with bad quarterback play. The Washington Commanders improved to 3-4. They had Taylor Heineke as their quarterback. The Colts are 3-1 with a washed-up Matt Ryan. The Titans are 4-2 with a lousy Ryan Tannehill. The Cowboys are 5-2, and they've won 4 of those 5 games with Cooper Rush. Falcons have won more than the Browns. They're 3-4 with Marcus Mariota. Can I tell you, having a bad quarterback is not an excuse for being a bad team. And Jacoby's not played very well, but he could be worse. There's guys playing worse. And yet you can't find a way. The defense was supposed to be great. It's not been. The running game's your strength. You're not using it enough. Kevin Stefanski deserves a lot of criticism. So what are the Browns going to do from here? Is the season over? Is there any hope? Will they come out to play a week from tonight against the Bengals? Will they make changes to the roster? Will they make changes to the lineup? Will they make changes to the coaching staff? Will Jimmy fire everybody? And do you have any hope with this team, knowing that Jimmy's ultimately the guy making the decision, and he hasn't made any good decisions? That's all coming up. By the way, remind you the show today is, of course, brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered the season with more props, odds, lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. It's a pretty depressing time. But is the season over at 2-5? Probably. I mean, I think they're done. I think they'd have to go 8. They'd probably have to go 8-2 to make the playoffs. At least 7-3. Could you win this division at 9-8? Maybe. But the Ravens are 4-3 and have a tiebreaker. The Bengals are 4-3. If the Browns lose to the Bengals next week, obviously that's the death blow. Then they're officially done. Well, not officially, but then there's no chance, no realistic chance. But right now, it's hard to believe the Browns could even go 7-3, let alone 8-2. And it might take even more than that to win the division. So we'll take a quick break. Come back with more in just a moment. Right now, I got to talk to you about Bet Online, your number one source for betting and for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, Bet Online remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, so where do the Browns go from here? So will they make changes? One more game before the bye, and they are in a terrible way at 2-5. I think they're good. I don't think we'll see anything done right now in terms of the coaching staff. I think if they're going to make a change, we'll probably see something after their bye week. But remember, and now in terms of players, the trade deadline is November 1st. So the Browns will play on Halloween night, October 31st against the Bengals. Then they're on a bye. The trade deadline is November 1st. And whether the Browns win or lose that game Monday night could go a long way into determining, A, do they make changes to the coaching staff, and B, do they make changes to the roster? Anybody on this team that could be a free agent or maybe has 1 year left on a contract that's they might not pick up could be gone if the Browns lose to Cincinnati on next Monday night. Kareem Hunt, for example. Jadeveon Clowney, for example. These guys could both be moved. Now, ultimately, I don't know how much you get for either guy. I still think Kareem Hunt is one of the 15 best backs in the league. But there's not a ton of teams that need a back. But the Panthers got a lot for Christian McCaffrey. Kareem Hunt is not as good as Christian McCaffrey. Certainly hasn't been as productive, but in recent years, but we know the talent's there, and he has a similar skill set. So what the Browns could get for Kareem Hunt in a deal, I don't know. But if the Browns lose a week from tonight, we may find out in the less than 24 hours between that game and the trade deadline on Tuesday. Again, Clowney, another guy. They're not going to get much for him either, but those guys and who else? Who knows who else could potentially be on the move. The last hope to salvage any dream of the playoffs will be against Cincinnati next Monday. At the moment, there's no reason to believe that the Browns can win that game since the Browns have lost 4 in a row and the Bengals seem to be rounding into form. They've won 4 of their last 5. I don't know if we got an early line on that game yet. I haven't seen it. The game is in Cleveland. Well, yeah, there is. So, yeah, well, of course there is. Yeah, so the Bengals are favored, and it's not a surprise. So that one's going to be tricky. Now, the Browns have played well against the Bengals. They've defended Joe Burrow pretty well. Does this team have it in them again with a defense that's playing the worst football we've seen in years? I guess we'll find out in a week what this team's made of. We heard from Mary Kay that there was a lot of yelling and screaming in the locker room. Everybody that talked about it said it was just football. I buy that. It's a lot of testosterone, a lot of anger from losing, a lot of frustration. Guys will be guys. They're yelling at each other in the locker room. I don't think that's a problem. I got no beef with that. I'm not making a thing out of that. However, there has to be some frustration with the coaching staff. Overall, Joe Woods has done a bad job here in his time in Cleveland. I don't think the Baltimore game is I do think he did, you could say the defense and he did a better job there. I think there's certainly an argument to fire Joe Woods here in the middle of the season. I think this is certainly an argument to fire Mike Prefer in the middle of the season, and some would argue this argument to fire Kevin Stefanski. I'm very torn because I'm a Kevin Stefanski believer. I've lost some faith in him the last 2 weeks. I ultimately don't think he should be fired, but at least not till the end of the year, and maybe given one chance with Deshaun Watson next year. Although my man G. Bush has made a compelling argument. Like, again, the guy's one game over 500. I've always screamed that you can't let how bad you were make you stand pat with mediocrity. That was my argument against Baker Mayfield. Everybody was like, wow, he won us a playoff game. And he's pretty good. Yeah, but pretty good's not good enough, and we've seen he's even worse than that. And maybe that's maybe that same thing I got mad at people for with Baker, I'm doing with Kevin Stefanski. Maybe his mediocrity is just better than the garbage they had, and so I'm overrating it. Like I said, he's only won 40% of his games since losing to the Steelers, since beating the Steelers in the playoffs in 2020. 40%. That's not cutting it. Kevin Stefanski's got to do something here. There's no excuse for this team to be 2-5. Listen, I didn't pick them to go to the playoffs. Once we knew Deshaun Watson was getting suspended 11 games, I didn't think they'd be a playoff team. But I thought they'd win 8, maybe 9. Right now, they don't even look like that. I mean, again, they're on pace to win like 5. It's not cutting it. You don't get a pass for the whole season because the quarterback was suspended. You knew he was going to get suspended. And Andrew Berry doesn't get a pass either. Let's face it, we were lauding him for a while. What's happened with his draft picks? Most of them have not panned out to this point. It's early on some guys. I do like Emerson. He's hit. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is doing a hell of a job. People keep dogging Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's not the problem on this team. Donovan Peoples-Jones has let's see, that doesn't include today. He has about 330 yards right now in 7 games. I mean, he's been pretty good. I'm good with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Would I like a better, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is probably a 3rd receiver, but he's been pretty good. That was a 6th round pick. But by and large, Jedrick Wills is not looking like a great player. He's at best average, and he had an awful game yesterday. So there's a lot of criticism to go around. Some of the individual defensive players have been huge disappointments. John Johnson, an Andrew Berry signing, has been awful. Denzel Ward, who they signed to an extension, hurt again, has been lousy this year. Greg Newsome, 1st-round pick last year, had a good rookie year, has been awful so far this year. JOK did make a nice, he made a couple of nice plays yesterday, but overall it's been a huge disappointment this year. Myles Garrett had a good game. The production hasn't been there consistently. Probably not his fault. The defensive line around him, nothing. Linebacker, you're getting little out of the position. Safety, huge disappointment. Grant Delpit, 2nd-round pick's been awful. It's not good enough. All right, quick break, some final thoughts to wrap things up on another Browns loss. Next, the bullpen with Adam the Bull. So, as we look at the standings, as of right now, the Browns are in last place at 2-5, and they are 2 games back of Baltimore, who has a tiebreaker against them, and Cincinnati, who the Bengals would have the tiebreaker there right now due to conference play. But again, they're playing this week. Browns have been outscored by 18 points. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, 6th worst in the AFC. Their defense has allowed 186 points. Only the Chargers have given up more. There's not much good I can say about what the Browns have done. They've lost 3 or 4 home games. They've lost 2 or 3 road games. And this is it. This is the final stand. If you want to make anything of this season, and by the way, the schedule doesn't get any easier because if after the Bengals, you got road games in Miami and Buffalo the following 2 weeks. Now after that, the schedule doesn't look quite as tough outside of the Bengals and Ravens second matchups, because the Buccaneers are a disaster right now. Houston stinks. The Saints are terrible. The Commanders are terrible. So there's winnable games there. That's the unfortunate part, is that, Deshaun Watson's going to come back for 6 games, and 4 of those 6 games are against teams that are not very good. But it might not matter if the Browns are, 3-8 by the time he gets back. It won't matter. It's going to be too late. They needed to be at least 5-6. We thought 6-5, but the reality is, with the way the AFC's been, especially the North, if the Browns had, were 5-6 when Watson came back, they'd have a shot. But to do that now, they're going to have to win 3 of the next 4 games. Bengals at home, at the Dolphins, at the Bills, Buccaneers at home. I mean, anything's possible, but the way they're playing, and again, season can turn around just like that. They beat the Bengals next week. We will still have a new look at it. But the odds of them winning 3 out of 4, Bengals, Dolphins, Bills, Bucks, are not good. Captain Obvious. Ultimately, I don't think the Browns will make any coaching changes midseason. This group doesn't seem to think that way. I think they will change the defensive coordinator at the end of the year unless there's a huge turnaround. I think they should change the special teams coordinator, but for some reason, Stefanski has a thing with Prefer. I don't know. I don't get it. Prefer's been embarrassingly bad here. But ultimately, we've talked about this in the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Still, the franchise is rotten at the top. And that there's nothing that can be done about. Jimmy Haslam has been an absolute embarrassment for 10 years. Within the first year, he got his business raided by the FBI. A lot of people went to jail because of that. They've lost 67% of the games since he's been the owner. He's fired everybody. He's made bad hire after bad hire. If Stefanski and Berry don't pan out, then he has no good hires in a decade. None. Everybody else has been terrible. Terrible. Every other coach, every other GM. Are we going to add 2 more to the pile? He has his brother-in-law and a son-in-law in a high-ranking position. He's got his grandkids running around the field when the Browns are trying to win a game at the end. He's a clown owner. It's really that simple. And if they do go and fire guys again, which maybe I'll think that's the right case, call at the end of the year, would you have any faith that this is going to be the time that Jimmy Haslam finally gets it right? He's like Sam Beckett in Quantum Leap. Scott Bakula's character. Keep trying to leap home. You never get it right. Neither does Jimmy Haslam. Well, that's depressing. Coming up tomorrow, though, I'll cheer you up with some Cavs talk. Make sure you subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show's YouTube page, which is where you can find my podcast as well. Subscribe and make sure you hit that bell so you get alerts every time I put out a podcast, every time we go live on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show with our regular show and our post-game shows. Make sure you subscribe to the Locked on Browns podcast with G. Bush and Jeff Lloyd. Make sure you watch our post-game shows after every Browns game. Follow me on Twitter at Adam the Bull. And I'll make cameo videos for you at Adam the Bull there. And check out the website, adamthebull.com. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Where else but right here in the bullpen. See ya.